everybody, Sean with Avid. I am super excited today to have a special guest with me today, Mick Mulroy, who's with us. And thank you for coming on, Michael. I really appreciate it. Taking time out of your Saturday, your busy Saturday. Appreciate it. But I just want to start. We'll start for those who, unaware, just roll through a little bit of your background. So Michael McMulroy served as a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East under Secretaries James Mattis, one of my personal heroes, and Mark Esper. He's a retired CIA paramilitary operations officer from the Special Activities Center and a retired U.S. Marine, where he served in Afghanistan and Iraq. As Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, he led DoD policy and interagency representation for 15, count them, 15 Middle East countries and the implementation of the 2018 National Defense Strategy in the region, which sounds like a pretty complicated process. Mick's also co-founder and principal of the Lobo Institute, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, president of FOGBO, where he directed the delivery of 3,000 metric tons of humanitarian aid into Gaza, Sudan, and South Sudan. He's an ABC News national security and defense analyst, senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, a member of the Atlantic Council Counterterrorism Study Group, and a member of the board of advisors of the Vandenberg Coalition, Plato Academy Center, and the Aurelius Foundation. He's a co-founder and co-president of End Child Soldiering, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. Co-host of the Stoicism podcast, Pub and Porch, Applied Stoicism. And I can't wait to talk about Stoicism with him because that's another topic of my interest. And recipient of the Secretary of Defense Medal for Outstanding Public Service, the CIA Intelligence Star, and numerous other awards and medals. So, Michael, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, and your Saturday especially, and taking some time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it.
Sounds like a guy who can't keep a job to me, to my mom. Yeah, no, good to be with you.
Thank you very much. So I just thought we'd start. I mean, of course, Ron Moore's everywhere, everyone's mind. So I wanted to start with that, and then later on get into some of your endeavors. But let's just start with Iran, because of course that's front and center these days in the news. So with the signing of the MOU this week, the Trump administration is trying to move past the war. But as we've seen in the past several days, Israel's operation in southern Lebanon seems to be causing all kinds of problems. And there's also some signs of problems, other problems with the Strait, Iran's attempt, like signals that Iran looking to exert some control over the Straits and whatnot. So what are your thoughts on where things stand at the moment in the conflict or in the negotiations, wherever we're at here?
Yeah. And I was on just before you, and while we were on, they announced that Arachi, the foreign minister, is en route to Switzerland.
Okay.
So maybe we start with a bit of good news, right?
Yep.
Obviously, we're not going to be able, in my opinion, to rescue this MOU if we're not able to get into a nuclear agreement that's more restrictive of the one that we pulled out of in 2018.
Yeah.
Right? If we're not even talking, we're not going to get to a new agreement. It's not guaranteed we are.
Yeah.
But certainly, if they're not even showing up, which says two things. One, they feel like they have the upper hand because I think most readings of the MOU would say it heavily favors Iran. And quite frankly, if you were the Iranian regime, not that I put myself in their place very often, I'd be like, don't do anything to screw this up, right? Show up in Switzerland. Because ultimately, if we start with the agreement, I think we should go back a bit after that, if it's all right. But starting with the agreement, it gives a lot of the incentives that we would normally use to get them to agree to no enrichment, to agree to turn over their highly enriched uranium, dismantle their nuclear program, allow anytime, anywhere inspections by the IAEA. You need incentives to do that. And one of my biggest immediate concerns is we've already given them a certain level of sanctions relief to allow them to sell their energy. That's billions of dollars. I think I've heard 65 billion a year. It's continuous. We've already, according to reports, had some of their assets unfrozen. There's at least 25 billion.
The 25 billion, yep.
And then, of course, we're talking about this $300 billion reconstruction fund, which is just, to put it politely, baffling because ultimately, as somebody who fully supported, and I think most people say this, Iran not getting a nuclear weapon ever, not being
Sure.
allowed to get a nuclear weapon ever, and it has to be
Hmm.
more than just right. So the Midnight Hammer, Operation Midnight Hammer, that hit the facilities at Natanz and Fordow and Isfahan, that did a lot to degrade it. It didn't obliterate it. That's not even
Yeah.
a military. Uh, I'm sure you know a military term. It did degrade it, but but I think it was the right thing to do. The other issue, of course, was the ballistic missiles, which many believe they were building up to be able to essentially protect a nuclear program. But
Hmm.
let's just be frank. You don't need 60% enriched uranium if you just want a civilian program.
The civilian,
They
yeah,
yeah, they
program.
yeah, they clearly want a nuclear bomb, right?
Yeah.
They
And
wouldn't
is it
enrich it.
after the JCPOA went away, they started ramping up their enrichment, right?
Yes,
Substantially. Yeah. They just
yeah,
said, screw it, we're gonna go. We don't have any restrictions on us. And my
they
understanding is it doesn't
yeah,
take long to get from 60 to 90 or whatever. There's that the window
that's
there's
you're correct, Sean. At least
yeah.
from my knowledge of it, once you get to 60, if you have the right type of centrifuges, you can get there relatively quickly. So
Mm,
within weeks, months, maybe. The issue then is you have to miniaturize it into essentially a component that can be triggered by a mechanism. So you have to develop the triggering mechanism, then the delivery mechanism. So we weren't
yeah.
right on the verge of a nuclear weapon, but I am 100% in agreement that we should do whatever we needed to do, preferably through diplomacy. Diplomacy should always prevail, but it didn't. So they took the strikes. The ballistic missiles we needed to restrict. But this question now is Iran, if this holds, is going to
Hmm.
come out better at the end of the war. So if you look at the main objectives, regime change, I know they're kind of coming off it now, but clearly we're talking about regime change at the beginning, even saying we did change the regime. And I have zero love lost for the regime, right? Like I
Yeah.
think if you deliberately kill Americans,
Yeah.
especially military members and CIA officers, you should always be on our list, right? So
And
I
it's easy to forget that. I'm reading Vali Nasser's book right now. He goes through like the 80s and marches through, the Marine Corps
oh
bombing of
yeah,
the bear. I mean,
yes,
it's easy to say like, oh, whatever. These guys aren't like Al Qaeda type terrorists, but when you look at the history, yeah,
they
that's when I do
yeah,
start coming over to like, man, these are the bad actors, and like they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt.
they don't. And
Um,
if you're killing Americans, then I think when I go on the list, I mean, when I say go on the list, I mean on the list, right? And until 9/11, Hezbollah was the biggest terrorist killers of Americans,
yeah.
right? So again, but that said, the intelligence community, per media reports, many said
Mm,
that even the decapitation strikes, again, I'm not necessarily against it, but they weren't going to change the regime. They
right.
kept talking about something that our own people said isn't going to happen, and it didn't. So now we have a 56-year-old Ayatollah Khomeini rather than an 86-year-old Ayatollah Khomeini who's pissed off, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, I don't care that he's pissed off, but we didn't change the regime. And
Yeah.
Vahidi, now the new IRGC commander, is one of the most hardline who has been advocating for them to get a nuclear weapon. He was
Right.
opposed by the former, supreme leader, right?
Hmm.
So that objective is not met. And now that we're allowing them this financial relief, that regime isn't going anyplace.
Right.
We're embedding this regime and
Yeah.
firmly in place. So there's no more help is on the way to the Iranian people who are completely oppressed and butchered by these um, the regime members. That's gone.
Uh, Additionally, I mean, I've written a little bit on this. The more time that goes by, the more progress they make in opening up the strait, there's going to be very. I mean, the desire to go back to a kind of kinetic or military operation is just not going to be palatable to anyone. It's going to be very difficult to resume the kind of deterrence or like threat of force that they had in place prior to 28 February. So anyway,
True. Very
yeah,
true, right? So that wasn't even an objective of the wars to open the strait. That came after they
yeah,
closed the
that came.
strait because of war, right? So,
Yeah,
and now if you look at the agreement itself, I can't remember which point it was, but it doesn't, it says pre-war levels, but it doesn't say they give up the right. In fact, it specifically says they're going to coordinate with Oman on how this is going to work, which means they own the Strait of Hormuz.
that's one of the craziest clauses of it because it explicitly says 60 days and then you can
Yep.
do whatever you want. Like it's really baffling to me that language is in there,
Yes. We
unless they were
should
just put.
never. I mean, we don't even have the authority to give up and turn sovereignty over to an international waterway to
It's
another
in,
country. Why does the United
yeah,
States have that authority? I
yeah,
mean, I'm
that
all
clause.
pro-US on everything, but we don't get to own international waterways and negotiate them away.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was really odd. It just seemed to like green light the fact that after the 60 days, they were kind of like, I don't know. There was no real strong language in there saying you will not charge tolls or you are not in charge of this international waterway, etc.
Right.
But yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Right. And then the other objectives, ballistic missiles. And I supported the military objectives of we need to degrade their ballistic missiles if we can't get them to do it any other way, because ultimately it's going to be it was a protective mechanism for their development of nuclear weapons, in my opinion. I think there's intelligence that's been reported out, media on that.
Hmm.
We did a good job on that. I was touting it. Look, I'm not a red or blue shirter. I'm a red, white, and blue shirter.
Yeah.
I am America winning strategically
Hmm.
with its allies, of course.
Yep.
Um, I still like to see how we can come out of this. In the next 60 days. But on the ballistic missiles, I think we had done a fairly good job. We hit some snags with the way they store their missiles and the ability to penetrate with our massive ordnance penetrators and all that because of the type of granite. I mean, we could get pretty wonky on that, but we did degrade it. But now we're giving them the money to replace them all, and now we're
Yeah.
we're actually advocating for them to have ballistic missiles.
Yeah. And the missiles aren't in it. They're not covered in the MOU at all, right? It's just kind of like, I don't
Yes,
think, yeah, that there's a clause in there saying you will not, an attempt to curtail their ballistic missile
right,
program.
like this amount or
Yeah.
this
Anything.
range. That
Yeah.
was that was the debate we had, which was a valid debate, but when I was in the Pentagon,
Mm.
is this the JCPOA doesn't cover missiles or proxies. It didn't,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And neither does this. They're not even
Hmm.
part of the discussion, except for now we're now advocating for them to have
Yeah.
ballistic missiles. I mean, I understand why they want them, but it's not our job to worry about them. They're the
Mm.
destabilizer of the Middle East. Like,
Yeah.
there's no Gulf country who's going to start a war deliberately with Iran. Iran knows
Yeah.
that. That would be financial suicide for them,
Hmm.
right? So, who are they trying to protect themselves? They could say Israel. Well, if you weren't death to Israel and attacking Israel and using all your proxy forces to attack Israel, they probably would move on and focus on, I don't know, Israel and building up their economy and everything that most countries focus on. Iran is the destabilizing force in the Middle East. Every
Yeah.
country knows it. Iran knows it, and they use it to their advantage, right? So we didn't accomplish that. We didn't even address the proxy support to proxy organizations, also known as U.S. designated terrorist organizations. So we have
Hmm.
a long way to go in this 60 days. But again, I'm for America coming out of this strategically ahead. We're not there right now. I think we can clearly see that
Yeah.
from both sides of the aisle. But we have 60 days. So hopefully, or we have more than 60 days, right? Because we can just keep negotiating.
Just extend it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, if they haven't
Yeah.
agreed to a new nuclear
I
agreement,
mean, everything you hear about people who, I mean, yeah, fairly familiar with the JCPOA. It took a very long time, as you know.
two
I mean,
years.
it's you
Yeah.
to negotiate one of these deals in 60 days that's pretty pie in the sky, right? It's highly complex,
It's highly complex. We need experts there. That's
a lot of
another issue.
timelines, a lot of guarantees, and there's inspections that have to be. I mean, there's a lot there. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, it's not too late, but I think one of the reasons we got into the position we're in is because of the reduction in the role of the National Security Council. So
That's interesting.
you can say, well, it's water under the bridge. Yeah, well, I guess you're right, but we're going ahead too. So I'd like to see that reached up to its original intent, which is careerist. I know that's not that popular in this administration, but we're talking career military, intelligence, diplomats that are at the NSC with a national security advisor, like a General McMaster, who was there when I was there. Um, that really matters. That
Yeah.
essentially is where the discussions really happen, junior
Yeah.
levels compared to, obviously the cabinet levels, about if we do this, then what? If we start a war with Iran and it's by
Yeah.
the air, because we always knew we weren't going to do a ground invasion. So if you're not going to do a ground
That was
invasion,
never on the table ever.
never on the table. It's
Not,
never on
not
the
even
table.
Karg Island. Not even Karg Island.
No, I don't think so. But these are things you talk through in the national, like if we
I,
do a decapitation strike, is that going to be a regime change? Yes or no? Okay, if it's not a
yeah.
regime,
Teasing out all the scenarios and
yes.
really doing, yeah. Yeah. I
You got
know.
Intel professionals that are telling you, okay, how much of their ballistic missiles can we actually take out? Well, there's this issue of they're all in these missile cities, and we already talked about. Like that comes out like, okay, so this is what we think we can gain by, and this is what the threat is. Like we knew they were going to close the strait,
Yeah.
knew it. The
I don't know if
parliament,
Trump, I don't know if that really got through to Trump though. I mean, I know that some of the high level, what was not who was it that supposedly there was a couple key people I think that kind of like laid out to him that look, there's a good chance that they could close the strait, right? Am I mistaken
well,
on that?
we've been talking about this collectively, USG, right? So the royal we since the
For a
1980s.
very long time,
Yeah,
yeah.
like in 1980,
Yeah.
and then every time something flared up, at least when I was in those positions, it
Hmm.
was brought up. And
Yeah.
the parliament in Iran voted to close the strait before we started the war. Like you
This
didn't have
little,
to be like an inside the Langley, like
yeah.
this. It was they were telling you what they were going to
Yeah.
do,
They
and they did.
signaled that.
Yeah,
I didn't know
and
that.
yes.
Yeah.
So like, and then if we know that's going to happen in these discussions, interagency policy discussions, right? That would have came out. Like, what are we going to do about it? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the only way you can get it open is to use ground forces to take these key islands and even push in mainland. Well, are we going to do
Inland.
that?
Yeah.
What then you ask the military, what would the casualty rate? What would be the cost? And they would tell you, like, I'm not doing that. Right. So then you have to, this has to be worked out before, because it looked like we made the decision, went to war, said it was because Israel was going to go to war, and then we're moving assets to potentially do Carg Island. Like there was no Muse there when it started,
Yeah.
right? So the Marine Expeditionary Units that we'd use to, like we didn't even have the right assets in place. We didn't have the
Yeah.
assets for the blockade in place. So and again, you could say, okay, well, this is water under the bridge. Um, I only bring it up again. This isn't a partisan thing. I'm a partisan. I only bring it up as like we need that component because we're not done, right? We're
Yeah.
not done
Yeah.
anywhere. It needs to
Yeah.
have that role that goes through all the scenarios of our strategic level policy decisions so that the president and his cabinet is fully informed. And it's not, oh, we didn't expect this. They'll expect it. They're very capable. Yeah,
Do you have this? Do you think you can make the same argument? I know this isn't quite, this is a little bit separate from your area of expertise, but on the diplomatic front, do you think you can make the same argument that we're not really harnessing the full weight of the diplomatic community at the next stage to participate in talks so that they're just kind of like bringing people in who don't really have the background or, I mean, do you have any insight on that?
absolutely. I mean, that's part and partial because part of the NSC is the diplomatic component. So
Right.
the
They
state, right?
play
So
into that
oh,
process.
big
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
big time. But to your point, I think is specifically on the negotiations. Yes, 100%. We have, and Iran does it. Like Arachi, for example, the foreign minister, he is
Hmm.
very, very, very well versed in the nuclear discussions because he was the one that
Involved.
did it in JCPOA.
Yeah.
That's the leader, but they also have experts that know what they're talking about. And this is nuclear science, right? So, I can talk about it on a podcast and TV, but like If I was in a room with nuclear scientists, it's going
You're
to fly
you're
over my
you're gonna
head.
get lost
I am
really
a
fast.
Marine
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right? So
Yeah.
I'm
No,
not a
it takes
nuclear
someone who
physicist.
those guys
Yeah.
study that. That's their bread and butter. They study it their whole life, and yeah, that's who
Yes,
you need. That's who you need in the room at some
you
point.
do. And good
Yeah.
leaders like Secretary Mattis, since I am also obviously a fan, as are you, they listen. They listen to their
Yeah.
experts. They know what they know and they know what they don't know. And that's so I think Secretary Rubio should be leading the negotiation. Call me, old school. But the Secretary of State, and he's very capable, knowledgeable, and experienced. I don't
Hmm.
obviously I don't speak for him at all, but I don't think he agreed with this agreement at all. I mean, if you look at any of his positions throughout his entire career, they go
Yeah.
counter to all of it.
All you have
The
to do is
same,
look at his face when he's sitting there. You can tell he's not so happy with. I mean, that's what he
yes,
looks like. Yeah,
yes.
him and Vance as well. I mean, yeah, but
Yeah.
um,
So, but I think Secretary Rubio is more of a traditional, what I would call Reagan type Republican,
hmm,
which, I don't belong to a party, but I'm more on the Reagan side of foreign policy.
yeah,
So for that reason, I would like him more involved, but also because of his experience level. So not just because I think his positions align with me, but he has the experience, the gravitas, and the position, right? I mean, just
yeah,
Secretary of State. And then
yeah,
he should bring like careerists, the people that know from not only from state, which yes, diplomats need to be involved heavily and lead it.
hmm,
But the military, and I was in the military, we back up our diplomacy. If we're leading with the military all the time, we're wrong. We need to be
yeah,
there to give them the clout that they need to get things done through diplomatic means, not through
yeah,
force. Right. But then they have to have like the DOE experts and all the experts that we need to be there to get into these minutia. Like, how do we actually do inspections? Like, how are we going to actually? Because I mean, I was listening to somebody on a news program this morning who was touting that they had agreed not to get a nuclear weapon, and then in
hmm,
the same breath said that they have a clandestine nuclear weapons program. This is a person who's on the Intel committee.
yeah,
So, like, they're likely trying to get a nuclear weapon. We need to. This is really important that we get this right. So we can criticize how we got here, and I think that's fair, potentially for both the JCPOA and certainly this MOU. But I would like to get it back in the box so the U.S. comes out ahead. And you're going to need experts, both diplomatic experts and nuclear weapons experts.
yeah. And I think that's a great position because everything. I mean, I was highly, this. I personally just, I don't know. There's probably flaws in this position, but I thought the June strike bought us enough time. It set the program back. Well, I was actually when I woke up on February 20th, I was totally blown away. I couldn't believe it that we had gone for this full, complete roll of the dice and 100% attack on Iran. I was shocked, but anyway, my point is like this is all water under the bridge, and now we're at this juncture, and we should do, I guess, do whatever we can to get what we can from this deal. And it is that the nuclear deal is the most important. That was the casus belli of this whole conflict. So that's where we're at, I guess.
That's where we're at. Let's see if we
Yeah.
can send the experts and get some. Now it's going to be tough. It's just going to be tough. And then they're going to know that we don't want to go back to armed conflict. I mean, it's clear.
There's that,
I
and then
don't
there's
need it.
which we haven't talked about the Israel front either, but that's
Yes,
there's all kinds of complicating factors here. But
huge complicating factor.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I know your time's short, so I want to let's like so that's Iran war. I want to get your take on a couple other things. So um, just looking just like kind of broadening out a little bit. We're in a period of accelerated, looking at globally, we're in a period of accelerated political, technological, and societal change across the globe. So, Iran aside, when you look across the globe, what national security threats concern you the most when you look around today?
So, I'm somewhat of a traditionalist when it comes to our national security strategy, right? I mean, it's been fairly consistent up until this one. So, and the one that I was involved in was very traditional, in the sense that we identify our adversaries or near peer competitors or whatever, I don't know what term we're using now, but basically our adversaries,
Mm-hmm.
China being the most significant because of their capacity, but not
Yep.
necessarily not necessarily their intentions, although Taiwan we can go down and have a whole series of podcasts on.
Mm,
Russia, less capacity, but their intentions much more dangerous, obviously.
yeah.
Like they've,
Yeah.
it's always been the case, and now we know it for sure with Ukraine.
Mm,
And on Ukraine, I think the U.S. should be the number one supporters of Ukraine. We should be literally, hence the Reagan reference, the leaders of the free world, leading our military alliance and NATO, being the promotion of democracy and freedom around the world. Like everything we said we were, we should be, right?
mm,
And so, and part of that would be a direct, immediate, and continuous support to Ukraine politically, strategically, and of course, from direct support. Right now, we're just allowing them to purchase our weapons, which is de minimis. I mean, it's important,
yeah.
but it's not much. And they're turning the tides. And I know we're getting into
I
technical
know.
stuff.
What?
They're totally turning the tides. We're watching
Yep.
Iran, and maybe it's good we're not watching there because it's going in, freedom's direction, thanks to the Ukrainians and the
Hmm.
other European countries that stepped up. But the biggest threat, I think, right now to world stability is Russia. Yes, and China. It's kind of an irrelevant argument which one's more. Both are important, and by God, we spend enough on our national security that we should be able to do both. We should be able to have robust programs to counter China, robust programs to counter Russia, and the ability to go after Iran and North Korea to the extent we need to, as well as shoring up our alliances. We
Yes.
always go to war with allies. Our allies
Hmm.
are our biggest strength, and we need to ultimately. It should be part of U.S. foreign policy forever to promote democracies around the world. We talk about this a lot on our Stoic podcast.
Yeah.
The freedom index in the world is going down. Democracies are becoming less. Autocracies are becoming more. Um, we have a role that's unique to us. It makes us the indispensable nation that we used to talk. We still talk. I talk about. We need to promote that turnaround, and that should
Yeah.
be part of our. And that goes with economic freedom too, right? Which is beneficial, the free trade and all that, which is extraordinarily important. But that's what I think the biggest threats are. We have the country threats, and then we have this. It's part of that. This growing uh, surge toward autocracy and totalitarianism, which is never good for the leader of the free world and all of our allies that are, with us.
Yeah. And I just want to say here on your dedication to promoting democracy and defending democracy throughout the world. Um, I just, again, I have looked to the Reagan years as well, and I'm just like, we need to get some of that back.
We do.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, turning from the world, I want to talk about what you got going on, some of your endeavors. So you co-founded the Lobo Institute, which advises, consults, and teaches about conflict in a holistic manner. Which when I looked across your website, I thought that was a unique aspect of your organization. I thought it was super cool that you guys cover like full range, full spectrum of conflicts to include humanitarian operations. It's not your typical, contract or whatever. I don't know, think tank or contracting organization. It's much more than that. So I really want to encourage people listening to this today to go look at the Lobo Institute website because it's a really cool. What you got going on there is really really cool. But it's located in Whitefish, Montana. And I just want to ask you, what was the genesis? I know you have a co-founder, so you came together with some folks and co-founded it. But what was the genesis to the whole thing?
You know, back when I was still in service, and the co-founder Eric Ulrich, retired Navy SEAL, was in 11 of his 20 plus years, and he ended up on the Navy side of JSOC, right?
Hmm.
We were like brothers. We came up with it a long time ago.
Yeah.
Running in, we were both together in Somalia, so we were in Kenya running and came up with it. And a lot of people were like, "Hey, man, I think you guys wrote this on the back of a cocktail napkin because it kind of sounds crazy because it
That's where
is
some of the
crazy."
best ideas come from, right?
I mean, pub in the porch, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm obviously an Irish guy, but we did actually come up with it probably in several pubs and while running together. I think while running, you can come up with great ideas.
Hmm.
Um, but and I think it's a great idea. but it is like three companies in one. So
Mm.
it is predominantly military veterans from the soft community, but and we hear this often now. It's people say it's hippies and commandos, which is kind of funny, but kind of true too, because we have a lot of humanitarians, right? So a lot of former
Yeah.
UN folks, a lot of US aid, especially now um, with the closing down of US aid. So we have both, and that gives us a unique and kind of an unique. Um, then, so last week, which you get, we have seven other. There's a lot
You're
on this,
break
but
you're breaking up a little bit.
oh,
Go
okay. Can you
ahead.
hear me now? Okay,
Yeah, you're good.
okay. And it must have been some kind of interference. On the other main member, I should say. So Eric Ulrich, co-founder, uh, and he's we're together, like thick as thieves, brother from another mother, scenario. And then the other brother is Scott Canino. He's a retired uh, Army version of the JSOC side. I got it. They always want to be careful, even though everybody knows what the hell I'm talking about. So salt of the earth, exactly what you think. Uh, JSOC Army Sergeant Major, um, and just he's our chief operating officer. So
Mm.
together we run it, but we have experts that include former generals, several former generals, several super senior agency folks that run whole mission centers. We have former ambassadors. Again, a lot of humanitarians. We have a whole section. But we do tactical training here. That includes all of the JSOC units, SOCOM units, my old unit. We do a lot of specific training now. We have a range. It's called the Big Sky Autonomous Systems Range. All of
Mm.
the modern warfare, especially drones, are getting tested there. We're integrating into ground
Oh,
combat. It's exploded. It's really
that's
that whole
cool. Yeah, of
section
course.
because of
Wow.
that. It has all the
Yeah.
licensing and everything. So that's a business thing, but from our perspective, it's not just we're giving back and training the next generation. We're training the next generation on stuff that they have to know how to do. So we're getting direct input from the modern battlefields,
Mm.
especially Ukraine. Like
I was
what's
gonna say
working there,
Ukraine,
what's
number
not
one.
working,
Yeah.
right? We
Hmm.
don't have a drone company, so drone companies come to us with this experience, and then we integrate it in the training,
Mm.
right? So this is taking straight off the battlefield and teach obviously just our folks. It's restricted for good reason. Um, that's one section. Another section, as you mentioned, we do human rights and humanitarian things. So under this great company called Fogbo, a lot of us were heavily or still heavily involved in humanitarian aid delivery. So
Hmm.
by air, by sea, by ground if needed. But we try to take our expertise in those type of operations, which are very common for people out of JSOC or my old outfit,
Hmm.
and put them into the humanitarian environment. So how do
Mm.
we deliver stuff by air that's less expensive, that's still effective? That's my guys love that stuff, and they really are innovative in like they'll and of course we know all the defense stuff, we know all the high tech stuff, so we'll go
Yeah.
to a drone company and say, can we manipulate this drone so it can deliver food in a way that's
Yeah.
not so expensive? And so there's a lot of testing, and we've utilized it in places. Some old school remedies that we got from the Montana smoke jumpers, which was awesome,
Uh-huh.
to really high tech like drones delivering critical medicine, for example.
Yeah.
But
So
we,
you guys are looking to push the envelope as far as like, I don't know, tactics, how the nuke technology drones can be used in complex situations. And this is something you guys sit around and brainstorm and work on all the
oh
time. Is
yeah,
that,
all the
yeah,
time,
that's
every
really cool.
day. And
Yeah.
we're not there. And again, Fogbo is the company that does this. It's just we do a lot of work with them.
Work
I'm
with
the
them.
I'm the
Yeah.
president of it, and Eric is the chief operating officer of them. It's not there to replace anybody. People, oh, you're military guys. Well, no, we're here to take our expertise and be value added. I mean,
Hmm.
we're small. We're not going to replace the World Food Program. We're there to help. Seriously, that's why we
Yeah.
do it. It's not something you get into, like great business opportunities. It's definitely not, especially now. And on
Mm.
that front, I mean, foreign assistance across the board has been cut all over the world.
With the with
Prices,
USA with the USA, I mean, did that does that bring more opportunity for you, more contracts, or like? But no, oh, no
not
one just
really.
not really.
Well,
Wow.
because we had worked for USAID several times. We worked with
Hmm.
NGOs. We don't do the distributing. We're not an NGO. We have an NGO, but I'll get to that. We
Hmm.
do. We work for them. So if there's nobody doing, we're not. And U.S. I think needs to rethink our foreign assistance, and hopefully that's happening now. I get there was criticism of what we were spending money on in the past.
Sure.
I agree with the criticism, but the U.S. should never be the country that doesn't feed starving women and children.
Yeah.
You know, you have a drought or you have a conflict that goes on, and you have people that literally are going to perish. The U.S. has always been the most generous nation. We should be proud of that. I get that we blurred all these other political issues in our foreign assistance. I
Mm.
think we should all go back and hope we could get back to like critical food, water, medicine that they can't get any other where, and developing countries so they don't always have to take assistance. That should still be a core interest of the United States. It's our number one soft power. I hope we get back to it. I get the criticism, but let's not. You got to be good to be great, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
instrumental.
Yeah, and
Um,
having talked to people in the region, Middle East, I mean, I just you just see people talk. It just we get so much good press from that for like, I know the critics would bandy about and it sounds like a lot of money, but it really isn't that much. And I know there was corruption, all those things, but having talked to people in the region, and it stimulates jobs for them, and
mhm.
it really generates a lot of good publicity for the U.S. That's my opinion, but anyway,
I agree. And
yeah.
and one more point on that, because I know there's other topics, and I'd certainly like to talk to the child soldier issue. That's the
Oh,
primary
we're gonna get to
human
that.
rights
Yeah,
things that Lobo does. But value in saving a child that's about to die. Um, but in addition to that, it's just the moral part, the ethical part. It's in our own interest. We're always talking about immigration. We're talking
right.
about Europe's immigration, even though it's not our immigration. Well, what do you think
Yeah,
causes a lot of that?
I know. I
Right.
know.
So
Uh-huh.
it's economic devastation. It's zero economic opportunity. You
Yeah,
and me, if our family was starving to death, which I mean, again, if you know me for 5 minutes, you know I'm an Irish American. A lot of my people got here for this reason. We
yeah,
were out of food. So
yeah,
if we're out of food, we're going to immigrate, right?
yeah.
You're not going to
Exactly.
let your kids starve. So
Yeah,
if people can understand that as a human being, then it's not just a moral thing that we should do, which we should do for more reasons. It's also in our own interest. If you don't
it's in
want
our own risk.
mass migration to, your allies' countries or your own, you
Hmm.
got to go to where it is happening and give them a reason to stay. So that, I mean, it's something for Americans to think about, because I truly believe that we are proud of um, our generosity throughout history. And
Yeah,
and by the way, because I get in these discussions a lot, um, Russia and China and a lot of the other significant economies around, they don't do anything. Like they don't do anything. Like
yeah, yeah.
everybody criticizes the United States, but it's like, okay, what is all these other countries doing? Like we could all do better, is my point, and some
Right,
could do a lot better.
right.
Um, and then on the child soldier, that's been an issue with me, especially me and Eric, for over a decade.
I think that goes back to some operations you were involved in the military in Africa, correct? Is that where you started? I wanted to ask you where you started, like where this became something you wanted to really tackle professionally.
So yes, so both I was in the agency at a time, and I was a chief in an African country, and one of many missions was to help um, in the LRA, which is the Lord Resistance Army, which child soldiering is an issue across the world in so many of conflicts, but the LRA specifically, like the army was children. not just children in the army, but
Yeah.
it was a 20,000 at its height child army.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of exemplified this horrible issue. But the U.S., both under President Bush and under President Obama, especially, did everything we could to end it. But we had to end it in a way. I mean, you don't want to just go kill it. You can't. I mean, you can't take a bunch of Americans and go kill those kids. I'm like, go F yourself. I'm not doing that. And
Problematic.
so
Yeah.
it was a very complex, influence based effort. It was called
Mm,
Observant Compass. It was the
mm-hmm.
military, but I was part of it from the agency side. I'm pretty proud. It did essentially end the LRA as any kind of viable insurgency, and it spent a lot of time getting kids out of the bush and into rehabilitation as
Mm,
needed because of the extreme violence they saw and were forced to do. So me and Eric did a documentary, and we're not documentary makers. We usually did it on our cell phones, and we had like GoPros and stuff
yeah.
um, on two child soldiers who are now some of my closest friends. Their youngest two kids are my godsons. They're
Mm,
literally a husband and wife that were abducted, forced to fight, fell in love in the bush, and escaped and went on to rescue kids. And it's like that sounds like a made up Hollywood thing. It is not. It's 100%. So we did the documentary, and another close friend, Mark Rosenberger, who was a paramilitary officer who died in the line of duty and is recognized on the wall and in uh, Arlington. He
mm,
was the third one. He perished, and so the documentary was dedicated to him.
mm,
Um, but it started being used by a lot of groups that do work on child soldiers, and then a very well known author, a New York Times bestselling author, Mark Sullivan, wrote a book based on the story in the documentary, and that funds
mm.
our NGO, and our NGO has been going on for um, 7 years now, and it funds efforts around the world that because a lot of these groups they can't go and raise money. They actually live in Gulu or live in all these countries that like Yemen, huge problem Yemen.
Yeah.
So we fund raise mostly by showing the documentary in the book, and then we provide grants. But we just got fingers crossed, and the U.S. is very interested in this. Where we might start doing rehabilitation centers, right? So
Oh,
taking the
wow.
expertise, kind of bringing a lot of the groups, and there's not that many NGOs that work in this area, together, uh, sponsored by the U.S. And we hope this happens. And if it doesn't happen with U.S. funding, hopefully we can, in starting in Africa, but then also moving to the Middle East, the Far East. This issue is from the Philippines to Yemen, Syria, Sudan, Uganda, all the way to Colombia and Latin America. I mean, it is an issue around the world, and it keeps going up and up and up. Adults starting wars and then making kids fight. And I think every adult around the world should be like, war's bad, but that's even worse. And we got to put an end to it collectively. There's a lot of stuff in the UN and the US that says just that. We just need to enforce it. And of course, we need to deal with these kids on the other side because, again, just like the whole humanitarian aid delivery, there's the
Mm,
moral issue, but there's also the practical issue. Because if a
mm.
kid's brought up to do just this, and when he becomes adult, that's the next generation of ISIS,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
you either help teach that young man, usually, how to fix a car or raise cattle or something that is going to give him a livelihood so he can have a family just like everybody wants, or he's just going to keep going with what he knows, and that's killing.
Right. And that's part of the problem, the zero, like very little economic opportunity in some of these areas, right? That
Of course.
fuels some, yeah.
Yeah.
I did quickly, I know we're stretched on time, but I did an interview with Robert Adolph. He's a former soft guy, and he worked for his second part of his career. He worked for the UN as a security officer in like um, I think it was a Western African country. But bottom line, he talks about child soldiers a lot in that book, and just like we all know it's bad. You see it on the news, but the way he described it, it's just like, oh my God, when you hear they're kidnapped, they're indoctrinated, they sometimes they're forced to participate in rapes and all kinds of initiation. I mean, the whole thing is just like unbelievable when you actually read the details of what happens and it severe psychological trauma, all that kind of stuff. And it's just so anyway, I applaud your effort on this because if there's any kind of score like really, really evil scourge in the world, child soldiers is one of them for
It is.
sure.
I totally agree, Sean. And this is kind of like genesis of Lobo, to be frank. That's what we started talking about. We're doing, and then the third. But yes, if anybody's interested in child soldiering, it's an NGO. Nobody gets paid out of the NGO except for the groups that are doing it. Just so people know,
Yeah.
it's. I mean, we don't, have never been rated, but I think we would get the gold star because our overhead is de minimis, put it that way.
Mm,
But and the problem's getting worse, right? So the LRA might, but the problem's getting worse, and I just think it's something that has to be addressed. It is, I would say a lot of the guys that I know that have PTSD, it comes from walking around the battlefield when the dust settles and seeing just who you were fighting. I'll
yeah.
leave that at that. But the other part, we're like a think tank, so we run, and we are a think tank, if you put it that way. We run the Whitefish Security Summit, which is a policy driven thing here in Whitefish. It brings policymakers, which what we call practitioners, right? So people who've spent their whole careers as diplomats, as soft commanders, military leaders, intelligence leaders. So it's right here. It's literally a mile from where I'm sitting right now. And it's 2.5, 3 day really intense discussion about what the future of U.S. policy should be in a place where it's off the record. Put it that way.
Yeah.
So you can have candid discussions with people who are now retired who could be totally candid, right?
Does that, I'm
But
really quick, I'm just curious, does that make for some really interesting conversations when it's off the record like that? I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody's civil. I mean, you're here having we also have it is Montana, so and we're a very soft-based country, our
mm,
company, military base, I should say. So we have excursions. We take people swimming in the lake and doing
sure.
PT in the morning, and you don't have to
That's great.
participate in that. But Glacier National Park's 30 miles or 30 minutes that way. And anyway, I won't make this a sales pitch, but the point
Yeah.
is to try to get to a point where people can have these candid discussions, and I would really hope, to go back to our original discussion, that eventually we come back to U.S. national security strategy,
Mm,
defined, nonpartisan, survives administrations, our core interest, bring in the SFRC, the Foreign Relations Committees in the Senate and the House, like get everybody involved, have a real that's going to endure. Because if your strategy doesn't endure past 4 years, it's kind of like anyway, so we do that. We also have an association with Montana State, several universities. We do a lot of on the academic side. So, like I
that's
said, we're
great.
like we're like three companies.
Yeah. That's awesome. Again, just reemphasize, I just think that's something that's really cool about your organization that you cover all these fronts, the academic side, I guess the more the thinking side and the research and all of the other
We do.
parts that go along with conflict that it's not just trigger pulling, it's the thinking side of
Right.
national security, which is again, I think it's a pretty unique organization. So I again encourage people to check it out. Check out Lobo Institute. You'll see what we're talking about here. Know you're pressed on time, but I want to talk about Stoicism really quick because again, another cool. When did you get into Stoicism? Let me start there.
As a kid, so my father was a scientist, and he just talked a lot about philosophy. He was also before me, he was a priest, a Brent Jesuit priest, actually. Glad he left, or I wouldn't be here. Neither would my sister. But he taught a lot based on or philosophy in general, like run the
Hmm.
gamut. Stoicism just kind of stuck to me. I think he would have labeled himself a one too, although
Yeah.
And then when I grew up, I kept coming back to it, even though it was unheard of. Like we moved all over the country, and even though he's a scientist, we lived in a pretty rural area, and people like in the South, like Stoicism. Is
Oh,
that
wait,
like
you
this?
went from the so you grew up in the Bay Area and then you went to this. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah,
Yeah, and you went
yeah.
to the
My
South.
dad.
Wow, what a transition.
So it was California to Boston to Georgia.
Boston's
All
nice.
American, like.
Yeah, you've
uh, I've seen it all.
You've
But
seen it all, yeah.
yeah, growing up, and then in the Marine Corps, like so, it isn't a military philosophy. Like it can be a lot of scientists, a lot of business people, academics, of course. It's very
Hmm.
closely associated with the military for good reason.
Yeah.
But it's not just about, so we try to, it's not that we try to dissuade that it's really popular in the military. It really is, but it's not just for military people,
Mm.
right? When I was in the Marine Corps, I mean, a lot of the required reading was key Stoic doctrine,
Mm.
including, of course, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. But it's
Hmm.
always been part of the military. The Roman military was essentially all Stoic, and then most Western militaries, came from that Genesis, the Roman
Mm.
legions, and
Hmm.
it's still very well alive today. The best, I think, current schools that just keep it are the academies, especially the Naval Academy, which my partner went
Mm.
to. I talk, I do lectures there, and so does Ryan Holiday, a friend of mine, does the Stoic podcast, and so it's still very heavily embedded in the military. So I saw it growing up the whole time. But then when I
Hmm.
got out, and Stoicism got super popular, which is great.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's been a resurgence just in the last,
Huge
what, 10,
resurgence.
15 years. People are turning to that just probably because all the uncertainty in the world right now. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are looking for something that's not only reorients them on what they know is the most important thing, but
Hmm.
sometimes that they lose that, which
Hmm.
is your own character.
Yep.
I mean, it's a virtue ethic, right? So it promotes the idea that wisdom, justice, self-discipline, and courage are like the key components that you should judge yourself by, not the kind of car
Yeah.
you drive or the house you live
I
in or any of that. They're not anti-wealth. I mean, there's plenty of really wealthy Stoics, I could tell you. But they're different. They don't go, my value is because I have this in my bank account.
what I own.
They
Yeah.
judge, even Marcus Aurelius, right? So Marcus Aurelius was Roman emperor, probably the best, but he focused a lot on his own character. Like he didn't have to,
Yeah.
right? And then the other person who he didn't learn directly from, but there was a couple in between there, was a slave. Like so, one of the
Mm.
pillars of Stoicism is Epictetus, whose name literally means slave. They don't know what his name was,
Mm.
and a Roman emperor. So that kind of tells you a lot about the philosophy. And then it was heavily influenced. I mean, George Washington was a Stoic, period. Like he had the play Cato shown in the snow to his troops before Valley Forge,
Oh,
right?
I didn't know that. I didn't
Right.
know that. That's interesting.
It's also
Yeah.
in it's part of our history.
Yeah.
Theodore Roosevelt, when he went down, his famous trip down the river,
Yeah.
he had Epictetus's Enchiridion in his pocket. He talked
I
about Stoicism all the
I
time.
read that Winston Churchill kept a copy on his that's I
Yes,
mean
Winston
during the
Churchill,
Second
another
World War
huge
to
Stoic.
draw strength from Marcus Aurelius's writing and
Yes,
which
Secretary Mattis. He was, a
I
famous
know.
James Stockdale. You probably know of him. He was
Hmm.
a Naval Academy war, spent a long time in the Hanoi Hilton. Ryan Holiday has a book coming out on him.
Oh
Incredible,
wow.
incredible. But so, or Nelson Mandela, he was
Mm.
on Robben Island. He read Epictetus, and his favorite poem was a very, I think, Stoic poem in Invictus, right? They made the movie based on that called Invictus.
Mm.
So it has been, it's not only been part of our history, especially in the West, um, since the founding of democracy. So Zeno is
Hmm.
roughly around the same time as it's still part of our society, our civilization. And I think it's the fact that so many people are getting into it, I think is fantastic. I really do. It's one of those things. I'll be at a policy conference on the other side of the planet, and somebody will come up to me. I think they're going to ask me about Iran, and they're like, "Yeah, whatever. Let's talk about Stoicism."
Let's talk about stoicism.
Yeah,
Well, listen,
so
I've got my copy right here that I bought when I was in college, and I haven't cracked it in a while. So this has inspired me to get back to
good.
Marcus Aurelius readings, and yeah. And what's great about I mean, you can just read some of his, I mean, it's not exactly a book you read from cover to cover. You can just read
Right.
some passages and yeah,
Yes. And people should
yeah,
know going into it. It's not written as a book. It was written to
right.
himself as a journal. He told his staff to destroy it, which is why so many people are fascinated by it. Because he wasn't writing it to say, look at me, I'm great. He was literally talking to himself. So if you go
Yeah,
into it knowing that it's not an easy read in the sense that it's like some, but it is one of the more, ironically, he talks a lot about like, focus on what you can control. Don't ever think you're going to be famous. Nobody's famous. And
yeah.
then he became really, really famous, partly
But
because of saying that.
the one you always hear, I don't know if this is apocryphal, but the one I remember, like, I think I remember it says, like, as if you're a true Stoic, you can always be happy on the rack. Like, when and I always thought, I don't know if that's true. You have to be a real master Stoic to reach that level, I think. But whatever, the point, I understand the point. It's just like the pain of life is nothing. And yeah, I get that. But,
Yes. Yeah. Epictetus was tortured and basically maimed by his owner and didn't blink.
yeah,
Literally showed no emotion. And I don't know how he can do that, but
I
he
know.
kind of
Now
set a pretty high
he
standard. But
reached a high level.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so we're getting close. So last, I want to answer you this question. So if Marcus Aurelius could look across today and see America, what do you think he'd think? What would he
Oh
say?
wow. What a I think I think Marcus Aurelius would have seen America as the potential for what a lot of the philosophy that he would have expounded to include Stoicism could be,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you go back, and this is a longer discussion, but if you go back to
Yeah.
Zeno's version of the Republic, so
Mm,
everybody knows Plato's version of the Republic. Zeno's version of
mm-hmm.
the Republic was super futuristic. Like even today, we haven't
Mm,
met it. It was all about meritocracy, equality, men and women, a global citizen. I mean, the United States, I think, would have been the closest that we've come. I
yeah.
think. I mean, maybe I'm being a little too biased toward America, but I think he would be thinking we're going a little in the wrong direction. That goes with promoting democracy. Like Stoicism at its core promotes everything that democracy promotes,
Mm,
right? It's self-reflective, but it's also service. It's very much about service and freedom. So I think he would have viewed it as you know, we're still a work in progress. You know, they say we're an experiment.
always. Yeah,
Experiment
always.
experiment is not done. It's not done.
Yep.
So I think he would hopefully give us some grace and say, yes, you've done great things, but you could do great things to come.
Okay. That's I don't know, interesting and I appreciate your thought on that, and I just find it fascinating that I don't know that we're still looking back at philosophers from 2,000 years that can sort of whatever the number is, it still
Sure.
can teach us lessons today. So I appreciate Michael your discussion with me today, and especially taking your time out on Saturday, busy Saturday. I know you've got other engagements, but Michael Mick Mulroy, co-founder of Lobo Institute. Thank you so much for talking with us today on the Avid podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be with
Yeah.
you.
Keep up the good work.
Appreciate that. We will.